President Obama is poised to sign sweeping legislation aimed at reining in so-called abusive practices at the nation's credit card companies. Will the new rules be good for consumers and business, or are we looking at a major policy backfire? Joining us now to debate is Peter Morici, business professor at the University of Maryland, and CNBC contributor James Pethokoukis, the new money and politics columnist for Reuters. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey.
Congratulations, by the way, Jimmy P., on the new gig.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Appreciate it.
Now, Peter, I'm a big Peter Morici fan, but when I looked at the notes, are you actually defending the government coming in, tearing up contracts, essentially exceeding its constitutional limits, and putting interest rate lids, this kind of intervention in the economy, as a good thing for the markets? Are you defending this?
Well, it's been clearly established that they're not exceeding their constitutional limits during the Great Depression. But I think it's a good idea.
Maybe that's why FDR tried to pack the courts.
Yeah, well, but he got along on it. Yeah. My feeling is the banks have become involved in some rather egregious activities. They've come down very hard on the poorest of the poor, and that some regulation is required, that ordinary individuals simply cannot negotiate on their own with these banks, and that it's actually going to be good for banking. You know, these monoline credit card banks like Capital One and so forth, you know, they can come down really hard on people with large balances and then use that to subsidize folks like you and me that pay on time and get new customers. But that's not very good for the image of Bank of America or Citigroup,
Peter,
who project themselves as being interested in the community.
Jimmy P. makes the point, and it's basically that you're going to make the healthy people essentially have to pay more going forward and be treated as though they're not healthy in order to make up for the loss on the downside.
I don't believe that that's going to happen. If the healthy people
Jimmy
now are not being subsidized,
Peter, it's already happening. It's already happening. I've heard plenty of reports already. People, you know, that the perks are getting cut back, the bonus points, the bonus miles. Sort of the theme of this administration, the one consistent theme is, if you worked, it's the old Clinton thing, if you worked hard, if you played by the rules, you get punished. The people who have paid off, who have not been big credit risk, those are the people getting punished, and that's what's happening again.
What's intriguing to me?
They're getting punished for a very another reason. Whenever the banks get in trouble, they jack up the fees on credit cards and a lot of other fees, including the fee to convert a check from your grandmother in Ireland from euros into dollars to try to make up the difference. That's what's going on.
But even worse, then don't borrow from the bank. But if you do borrow from the bank, you follow your contract.
Well, fine, but for Pete's sakes, don't have contracts where they can change the rules in the middle of the night when you're not looking.
Have adjustable rate mortgages? Look, credit cards are revolving debt. There's a big difference between regular debt and revolving debt. We basically reborrow
every month. Well, you tell that to someone who makes $40,000 a year with a $7,000 balance. It's not revolving.
You know what I'm going to say to someone who makes $40,000 a year with a $7,000 balance? Stop buying. Stop buying.
I agree with you. They should stop buying. But I do believe there have been abuses, and I do think that good credit card payers are going to find that there'll be some banks that recruit them and give them the perks again. Basically, they'll carve them out as a separate risk pool. You watch. People will get perks again as the economy recovers.
Jimmy P., are we attacking the wrong side of the equation here? Are we not educating people enough about using debt and using credit cards, and rather trying to basically extend rights to them without really explaining what the issues are with extension of those rights?
Well, I'll tell you, some of the things that this bill does about making the credit card agreements much more, it's kind of the Buffettization, making them clearer, more in plain language. Yeah. All that stuff was basically done by the Fed, Office of Thrift Supervision, back in late 2008. So they had to go in and add all the crazy stuff, like not letting 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds get credit cards.
Right.
They
can fight in Iraq, but they can't have a credit card
always
at
talk
age
about
19.
education. It needs to be education. That's what we need. We need better personal finance education in high school, even college. That is your solution, not clamping down on people's liberty and freedom.
Peter Morici, Jimmy Carter did this in 1980. He put a lid on credit card rates, and what did we get? We got.
We're not putting a lid on rates here. What you're saying is you got to be 60 days behind to have your rate jacked up.
We got a shortage, and we had a really bad recession. We're already in a really bad recession.
I don't think. If you think this is going to make the world worse, you're nuts. My feeling is what's going to make the world worse and more difficult to get out of is that people are starting to rein in how much they spend. They're paying down their debt.
It's going to make it easier
to reflate the economy in that context.
Listen, as worse as it is that we're punishing people who played by the rules, if you look at this bill,
they're not punishing me.
Listen, the amount of micromanagement of this industry should be terrifying. If a credit credit card company wants to charge.
Hold on a second. The banks can't make a very good argument that they don't have some oversight given what they've just done to the economy.
They can't do it. This is just like it's extreme micromanagement.
Hold on a second. You mean we shouldn't be concerned about the civs and the kinds of mortgage-backed securities Jamie Dimon's been creating, which have tanked the economy?
Wait,
Come on.
If you heard anything I just said, you would be saying
Peter, how are we suddenly talking about civs? The topic is whether we ought to have these controls on credit card companies.
And I think
and
we
you can
should.
say all sorts of bad things happening in the world, but that's not a topic right now.
The recovery of the economy, the world's going to come to an end if we require them to wait 60 days before they raise the rates.
No, the world's not going to come to an end.
Well, that's all this thing does.
But you know
and it basically says you can't give a card to an 18-year-old if he doesn't pay his own bills.
Peter, what happens is it changed the incentive. I pay my credit card bill. I pay my mortgage.
And you will find that you will be able to get a good deal on a credit card next year.
And to pay their mortgage. And what's going to happen now is we're going, once again, the people who actually do what they're supposed to do, the people who actually do what we teach our kids to do, are going to end up taking the rap for the people who don't.
You mean to tell me Capital One has been taxing these poor people to subsidize you, and you're happy with that?
Listen, if they want to borrow, if Peter's so worried about these poor people, Peter's worried about.
They've been taxing the deadbeats with high fees to subsidize people like me? That's crazy.
Listen, it's up to them whether they borrow.
When the poor people that Peter's worried about, when they don't get credit cards, and then they have to go, I don't know, loan sharks, payday loan people, those are the people who are going to get hurt.
What they're going to have to do is they're going to have to use debit cards, they're going to have to use cards with limits on them. We're not going to have credit card companies trying to entice them into extraordinarily heavy debt.
Peter, are there any, give us a forewarning. Are there any other contracts that you want us to set aside that if they become politically inconvenient, that the White House and the Congressman come in and say they don't count anymore?
I don't recall that they're setting aside a contract here. This is a regulated arrangement all along, and they're re-regulating.
I signed a contract. Did you sign a contract?
You should be much more concerned about what's happening to the poor creditors at Chrysler. Now, that's a cram down.
Listen, it's a contract. I read it. Maybe I'm the only one. I signed the contract. I keep the contract, and now I'm going to pay for the people who don't.
And what they're going to do is, it's just like the mortgage applications. They're going to change those, too.
Yes, I know.
Contracts are regulated.
Same mistake in both places. Thank you very much, though. I've got a contract with CNBC to end on time that I've already violated.
Okay, good night.
Thank you, Peter Morisi and Jimmy Pethokoukis. Coming back, right. Bad news for Bears, and I'm not talking about my favorite sparring partner, Joe Battipaglia. I'm talking about the real thing. That and lots more in our big headlines of the day when we come back. You're watching the Kudlow Report.